Hello, welcome back to the channel. Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench. And here we have an introduction to the build of this beautiful Pocher 1/8 Lamborghini Aventador LP-700-4. This is the manual that comes with the kit, HK119. You can probably read it up there. So if you've got the yellow Orion version, the Giallo Orion, that's the kit number, HK119. And this is the instruction manual you get. Now, as I've mentioned before, I watched Moss do a build of this, and what he's done is done it live on a live stream sort of basis. So it's live, obviously. So it's totally unrehearsed, and he's getting bits out of the box, and he's screwing it all together as you go. And there were a couple of little bits and pieces he found difficult and made a few little mistakes. And I can see why he made those mistakes. It's because for some unknown reason, the manual has been changed. This is what I got off the Pocher website, and you can go on there and you can download their manuals. And this is the manual, as you can see. Okay, the front is exactly the same. It says nothing on here about Giallo Orion, and it says nothing on here about the fact that this one I think was black. There was an orange one, wasn't there? There was a black one. There was a Roadster as well. Now, you may be asking yourself, why have you bothered downloading that manual if it's exactly the same as this one? Because it's not exactly the same. There are bits in this manual that aren't in that one. I'm not going to call them omissions because that's not fair. This manual is perfectly fine to build the model, but this one is better. I believe the models are identical. There may be some badging differences, I'm not sure about that. But what we have to do is use both manuals because this has some stuff in it that's very, very useful. And had Moss used this manual, which I did, if you go and watch his live stream, I think it was on part 2, I sent him a link to this and I found it on the Pocher website. And the link is there for him to use and he didn't use it. But basically there's bits and pieces in here that would have prevented him making the couple of small mistakes that he made. So, and I'm really glad that Moss did this before me because I probably would have made exactly the same mistakes that he's made. So I'm not putting him down in any way, shape or form. What I'm saying is this manual wasn't as helpful to him as this one would have been. So go over to the Pocher website and download this manual. This is HK100. Okay, this is HK119. This is HK100. If I think, what I'll do is I'll put a link up across the screen now. No, I won't. I'll put a link in the description below. And there's also a link in the description below where if you want to find out more about this kit and go and get yourself one. There is also, for this bank holiday weekend, there is an offer. They're doing 15% off. So that'll be quite handy as well. So what I've done, rather than use this one, okay, I've printed off some sheets that are applicable to the issue. So I'm going to quickly go through the instructions. It's not going to be like a review or anything. I'm just going to go quickly through and talk about what these things are. Okay, so the first thing I noticed, and that is in either of the instructions, we've got here water decal 19. WD is water decal, okay, 19, and they're telling you to put it there. If the car is left-hand drive, it goes there. If the car is right-hand drive, it goes on the other side. Basically, from looking at pictures of the real thing, it looks like it's some kind of CD player or something. So where you put something in. So obviously on the right-hand drive cars, it's going to be on the right-hand side. On the left-hand drive cars, it's on the left. So bear that in mind. They don't tell you that here. So you need to make up your mind straight away what you're going to do. All of this here is pre-painted. It's lovely. And then you can just screw all this together to your heart's content. Or you can paint it, whatever, add some flocking, whatever. Same with the instrument panel. Now here, when you look at this instrument panel, you think, what's that? Why have they got this here? There's a hazard warning there for right and left. So the hazard warning means pay attention. But what's this? Well, if you get the other manual, if you get the HK100 manual, you can see on here, we have the same symbol, okay, but it's in the top right. And they've got a hazard. And they've got a hazard next to MSO1, and here we've got MSO2. Now they call these metal stickers. Metal stickers, you would assume, like the Tamiya kits, it's a metal sticker on a backing and you peel it off and stick it on. And that's what Moss assumed. And he went to peel it off and it broke. Here, in HK100 they're showing you to put it in water of at least 40 degrees. So it actually should be called metal decal, not metal sticker. And also MSO1 is the correct number. MSO2 is incorrect. MSO2 is the big badge that goes on the back. I think it goes on the back. So there's the first error, okay, in the in this instruction manual. I don't know why they've changed it. Because when you look, all the part numbers and everything is the same. I'm just looking at it now. HO1, HO2, HO3, K009, HO5, water decals on there, water decals on there. Yeah, it's all the same. So I don't know why they did a new manual. Seems crazy. Did a new manual and made mistakes in the new manual. Usually what manufacturers do is make mistakes in the first manual and then correct it in the second edition. But here they've gone the other way around. So there we go. So that's the first issue. Right, going through the book, this here, RV4, is a big sort of reflective sticker, and that goes in the roof so that you can see it through the interior light. Don't forget to put that one in. Okay, this rear window has to be glued in. I think you get away with super glue. Put some Vaseline on the clear part first if you like. Get it super glued in. The edge doesn't matter because I don't think you're going to see the edge anyway, because the actual aperture you're going to see is smaller than the actual glazing. There's an interior panel that goes over it. You can see it here. Okay, and then there's a panel that goes on the engine side as well. Building up the front bulkhead here. Oh, adding seat belts here. I think we're gonna put some cord in there so they're not all floppy. Building up the front here, you need to decide. Well, you've already decided whether you're going left or right hand drive, and obviously make sure you've got your pedals on the right side. If you go for left hand drive, I think you're going to leave a hole in the floor there, and if you go for right hand drive, I think you're going to leave a hole in the floor there. So we'll get that hole filled and then we'll paint it or whatever to cover it up, because it won't look very good having a great big slot left in the floor. So coming over the page here, this is all going together. Now here is another issue that they didn't. It's something they've done here that I don't know why they've done it. Now I don't have a separate sheet, so I'm going to have to use my printed manual to show you this. But basically, you can see here we have very, very similar drawings. Okay, so you can see there and there. Okay, so this is showing this going in here like that. But what they've done, I mean, fair play to them. This is all one assembly stage. Okay, you've got 2 pages, but generally the way your mind works is this page and then that page. That's generally how things go. On this one, what they've done, you can see the difference here. Okay, we have 1, 2, 4. Here we have 1 and 2. So it's showing you fit the instrument panel first and then put in your screws to hold it in place. Then fit your internal side linings and rear firewall lining. Okay. Then on the next page, number 3 is fit the floor into place, and then finally fit the bulkhead. And you'll notice here on this drawing there is no bulkhead in place. What they've done in the new manual is we've got 1, fit the instrument panel, 2, fit the side panels and the rear bulkhead, 3, fit the floor, but they've already got the bulkhead drawn in place, and then 4, fit the bulkhead. And if you remember, Moss did it, okay, he probably just thought that 4 was a typo. So you went 1, 2, 3, and then had trouble getting the floor in. No biggie, it went in the end, but he did struggle to get it in. But what they've done here is it just seems to be a backward step. They've gone 1, 2 here, simple, and then the next step, and you end up with the same thing. Here they're telling you to put some metal transfers on. They're not in this kit, I don't think, so we'll ignore that bit there. There is a difference there. Alright, so there's another point to prevent yourself from making the same mistake. I would have probably done exactly the same, especially if you had the book like that. You just think, oh, that's a typo, that should be a 3, wouldn't you? And then you come through and you've got 3. So bear that in mind when you build him. Right, our next bit is going to be on page 13. So here we've got the engine, all the intake and everything going together, and then we've got the cylinder heads. Be careful of here. They do warn you in the older manual. They do warn you here. Be careful not to cut those pips off. For some reason, they haven't bothered putting it in this one, but they've got here. Be careful, MO5 and MO6. Be careful not to cut those pips off. Okay, they've got them drawn there, so just a little bit of extra care needed there. all going together with screws and everything. I did see someone do a build of this online long ago, and they actually cut these slots out. Instead of having holes, they had a slot so they could push them in after it was all painted. I will be building and painting all of this as well. And then going over the page here, if you remember when I did my review of this, I said probably the best way to do this if you're going to paint the exhausts is to fit those, dry fit those to the engine, and then glue on these pipes, let the glue dry and everything. We'll see if it's styrene, if we can use extra thin rather than super glue. And then when you go over the page, I said, you know, probably do all this, get it all assembled onto the muffler, and then sort of clip it onto the engine so you can paint the whole exhaust system as one. When you actually come along to here, you can see this is what they're telling you to do. They've put a ring around it, so they're telling you to assemble that, but don't fit it to the engine. And then when you go to the next page, which is here, they're telling you again, fit the whole thing. So my thinking was how the guy that designed this was thinking, exactly the same. So again, I don't know why they changed that. Right. Going on here, we're building up the subframe and everything. That's all pretty straightforward. Again, we've got the warning here about not... So this here is talking about the screws. We'll cover that when we come to it, but they're telling you to screw in, and then come back half a turn. Probably don't want to come back half a turn. That'll make everything a bit floppy. We probably want to come back about just a quarter of a turn or something, but we'll cover that in the build. So going over the page here, this is all pretty straightforward. It's all just screwing together. And then we've got all this all screwing together. Nothing I can see there of any issue. And then coming over here, we're fitting all this framework, and then we've got the rear subframe completely done, so that can be parked. Then we're going to start on the front suspension. Now down here, we have a part number missing. And that part number is R14. Okay, so it's missing from this manual. You can see it's exactly the same drawing, all the same part numbers and everything. R14 is that part number. Okay, so, and also they've got a hazard here, which they haven't bothered with on this one, with this shaft TO7, which is this one here, TO7. Make sure you don't cut off the nib on the front. Make sure you leave some of the nib on there, some of the sprue gate. Okay, so that's covered. Right. So this is all going together, all straightforward and everything. Make sure you've got your left and right hand drive bit sorted there. Okay, and then we're going to put all the rear subframe on. Personally, I think what I will do here is mount all these wishbones onto the subframe and do all this here before we physically bolt the subframe to the body, because it's less chance of damaging the body than when you're holding it and putting all these brackets in and everything. The other thing I want to do, which I should have mentioned on the front, these uprights here, you can see they've got part of the brake caliper attached to them. What I'm thinking about doing is going all the way to the back. Go all the way to the back here. Here we're fitting you can see the brake discs, and then the outer calipers covers go on. What I think I might do is build all this up with the discs and the calipers, and then I can deal with the seam on the caliper and paint everything nicely before the wheel goes on. So I think that's what I might do there. The only trouble is the disc will be floating around a bit, but we'll see. We'll see when we do the build. We'll see how it all goes. Right, so here we've got these little side windows going in. We've got these double-sided tape stickers to hold everything in. That's all good. There it's telling us to connect up the steering column. Make sure that's connected up. And then we're going to come along and start fitting all the window trim and everything into the side of the bodywork. Now, it may be easier to do this, all this here, before you put the subframes on. It's less of a lump to handle, but we shall see again. We'll see when we do the build. These may cover up some screw holes or whatever we need to get to, but we can study it and study it and study it and go from there. So here on page 24, they're telling us to put in the windscreen and fit these side panels. They're telling us not to use any glue, and then here we've got to choose our correct wiper blades and everything from there. And that's showing it here with the with all the wiper blades and everything all fitted. Now, I remember Moss having an issue with these. I think there was something about a sprue gate exposed or something. I can't remember what it was now. But I can't remember if he had to glue these in place. But for some reason, in the old manual, they've got double-sided tape. And they show you the diagram where all the bits of tape go. And on this one, they haven't bothered. I don't know why. Here they're telling you don't glue it. Okay? And here they're telling you don't glue it. They've got a tension there. I'm sure we get those stickers in the kit, so that's something else we can have a look at. All this is going to go together absolutely fine. There's some issues with the rear lights, I think. I remember Moss talking about. We'll have to look at that when we get to it. And then here we've got all the rear end going together. And this is where things get a little strange. Okay, when we turn the page, you can see here we've got the engine cover and everything going on. And then we've got all these other little panels going on and these little air intakes and everything. And what Moss did, it was really unfortunate. I felt really sorry for him. Because these are just exploded diagrams, they give you no clue as to what order parts should go. And there's nothing that tells you if you put these on now, you physically won't be able to fit that back end on. Okay? When you look here, you can see they've got YouTube extra information. So they're giving you a clue to go and have a look for their video. If you go to my playlist for the Pocher Lamborghini, I've put the videos in there. You'll see there's 2 videos in there at the moment. I'll try and find the third one. The third one's on the metal decals. And if you go to my playlist, you'll see them there. The videos are actually, they're done by Pocher, not by me. So that's how they stand up. I think they're sort of number, I don't know how YouTube is going to list them, but hopefully they'll stay near the top. So they'll be like the 2nd, 3rd and 4th videos in the playlist. But go and have a look at them if you're building one of these, because they tell you the sequence to go through assembling all of this. So you can see here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it's telling you the actual order it all goes together in, and then you can see they're dropping it onto the rear of the car and then fitting the screws in to hold it in position. And then when you come along to here, say to put all these stays and everything in, then they're telling you to fit these intakes on the side and these bits here wherever they are. All right. When you look in the new manual, you've got all of this here. All you've got is 1 and 2. Where's 3, 4 and 5 gone? And then you come to here and they're telling you to do it all together, and there's nothing to warn you not to put them in. This is why I think it's imperative to have a copy of this downloaded, just in case, for you to follow. Okay, because here they're telling you that if they have to go in after the body's been fitted. I really do wonder why it was changed. I don't understand why it was changed, unless this was created, because I know there were some changes in the structures at Hornby. Maybe Hornby don't have the license to this, or the license to this, the early one, so they had to reprint a new one. I don't know. I really don't know. But I really would advise having this this older manual in front of you. And then going through all this, I think this is all pretty straightforward. These headlights are a bit of a bind, I think, to put together. But there's nothing that's beyond the realms of man. And then here we've got, please read page 3. Okay. On here, we've got a YouTube video. Again, that YouTube video is in my playlist. It shows you how to put the doors together. And also, I don't know if it was done on purpose, but there's a sequence he uses. He puts a screw in, then he opens the door and puts another screw in, then he closes the door, holds it in position and puts another screw in. So there's a sequence he goes through in the video of attaching those doors. But also there's other bits and pieces you can change the speed the doors go up and down at. So that's worth watching as well, or worth reading. It's at the front of the manual. It's at the front of the manual here. Okay, the speed the doors lifting may vary. So there we are. So that is basically the build. Everything else is pretty straightforward. Okay, all going together lovely. And then you're going to cover up all that lovely work underneath with that underbelly, with the Venturi in the back. So all very nice, but I think it's worth doing the detail paint and everything, because it's just the fun of the build and it makes it look lovely when it's going together. So, so you've got yourself one of these kits. You've downloaded the instruction manual, the old one. You've gone right through it. This is one model. I know that the front of instructions, I bet they say it in here. Study drawings and practice assembly before submitting parts together. There we go. Detailed scale model for adult collector. The colours and context may vary from illustration. Please retain details and adjust for future reference. Not suitable for children under 14. This model contains small parts that could cause choking. So that's what they have to put in there. But this is one model, they always say that, but this is one model where I would thoroughly recommend familiarise yourself with it. Go watch Moss's videos. You know, if you are with a youngster, be careful, because sometimes he gets quite frustrated and the words can get quite fruity. But it's not very often, it's not very much. Yeah, you can hear the frustration in his voice. One of the biggest problems with putting these kits together is the screwing. Okay, so I'm going to talk about that. I'm also just going to quickly cover a couple of the tools that I think you should have before you even think about opening the box. And also we're going to look at thread cutting and everything. So the first tool you want is a pair of side cutters. You don't want the ones that you got in your I've got some glue or something on there by the look of it. You don't want to use the ones that you've got for your electrical wire cutting. I would thoroughly recommend getting yourself some proper modelling ones. As you can see, they're flat on the back, so you can cut flat up to things. You usually find wire cutters are beveled on that edge, so you can never actually cut exactly where you want to. So really good. You can get cheap and nasty ones, but I would thoroughly recommend, if you're going to build one or two of these, it's worth spending the money and getting some decent ones. These are Tamiya, these are my favourite. They're not the cheapest thing in the world, but I find that for what they cost as to the service they give, they're the best value. God hand are better, but they're much more money. So, you know, it's up to you. But you can get the really cheap and nasty ones. I wouldn't recommend it. These that you can get from Dave Coley, ProTech modelling tools. These are Dave Coley Emporium.co.uk. These are good because they're much cheaper. They're flat, they're ground steel, and they've got a flat back on them, the same as they have. Obviously, they're much cheaper, and they're fine as well. They're perfectly good. ProTech modelling tools. Dave Coley's Emporium.co.uk. And if you go and buy a nice kit from him, he often throws these in. So and they're very good for cutting wire and stuff. They don't damage as easily as these do if you cut in metal wire. Okay. The other thing I would recommend, a proper modelling knife, not like a Stanley knife. You can go and get yourself a cheap modelling knife. It doesn't have to be one of these Swan Morton things, but you can get a Swan Morton handle for a few quid on Amazon. You can get the blades for a few quid on Amazon. I think in a couple of days' time they're changing the laws, aren't they, on buying blades through the post. So bear that in mind. Thoroughly recommend a pin vise. This is a cheap and nasty one where you have these collets. Okay, so you have collets that you have to take out, turn around, interchange, whatever. Which is a bind when you're constantly changing drills and stuff. You know, at least if you've only got one. Whereas you get this one here. This is the David Union. I've got the box here. This I love. Whenever I talk about these, they sell out straight away. This is the David Union 150, the spring chuck. And the beauty of this is, as you can see, you can go all the way down to, I think they say 0.1, 0.3. Okay, they recommend the smallest drill. I'm sure you can go smaller. You can see it closes right up to 0.3, but it also opens right out to 5mm. So you just need the one pin vise. So you don't have to keep swapping collets around, because with this one, you know, if I want to go from this to a 1.2mm drill, I've got to take that out of there, undo the top, find the right collet. I think that's the right one for the 1.2mm. Put the front back on. Yeah, then test the drill and find I've got the wrong one. Get this out of here, put this collet back in here, put the handle back on, you know, and it's just such a bind. It really is worth spending the extra few quid and getting the David Union one. Be wary of copies, okay? I always say this. Quite often people will buy, see, this is where you go wrong. I've put the wrong collet in here, so I've got to start all over again. Right, that's going to go in there, that's going to go in there. Then the front's going to go on there, like so, and then that's going to go in there, and then that's, you can see what a farce, what a load of bloody fuss. Okay, be wary of copies. This is a David Union, it's a professional piece of tooling, and that handle, as you can see, it's got a little bit of play in it, but it doesn't squeak and or, you know, squeak and wobble around and everything. This is a very professionally made tool. Be careful of the Chinese cheap copies, okay? It's probably made in China. Designed and made in Taiwan. But very nice. I'm not putting it away because I'm going to use it in a minute. But a very handy tool, especially when you consider what we're going to be using it for in a minute. The other thing I thoroughly recommend is get yourself some tweezers. Again, these are the Dave Coley Emporium ones. They're not the most expensive tweezers in the world. They're certainly not the best, but they are very, very good value for money, and they work absolutely fine. You'll see me use these on every build I do. If you want to get some precision tweezers, go for these. These are the Anise, that's the company name there, AN059. They're absolutely amazing, but they're very, very sharp, and they really are very nice tweezers. Anybody that follows my channel has bought them now, so really, really good. You could go on, you know, sanding sticks is something I find essential for any model. These come from Premium Hobbies. Okay, so we've got all the little soft sticks here. We've got the hard zebra sticks here. We've got our sponges here, and then here we've got our little PE, which are basically stainless steel PE with self-adhesive. You can get this set on Premium Hobbies with the box and everything. I think it's about £70, I think. I could be wrong, it might be about £50. I can't remember, I think it's about £70. But don't forget, if the code still works, NMB10, Nigel's Model Dimension 10, and you'll get a discount. The last time I looked, I think it was 5%. It used to be 10%. But in this day and age, everything is going up. He's probably had to reduce the discount because everything's just getting crazy, isn't it, expense-wise. So there we are. So that's the tools I recommend. What I would thoroughly recommend you do whenever you're doing one of these Pocher kits, and Moss says it countless times on his channel, he really, really struggles. Now, what I'm going to do now, in fact, no, before we get into the tapping thing, I'll show you about the packaging. If you go back and look at my review, you'll see that we got a big bag of parts. Okay, I'll put a picture up now. You can see there's a big bag and loads of bags of screws in it and everything, and brackets and hinges and everything. I've gone onto Amazon and I've bought these cheap little plastic boxes. Okay, they're just I think they were about £3.99 for the pair. They're not going to last forever because they haven't got hinges as such. It's just a piece of plastic moulding. But basically, they're going to be great for the life of this model anyway. And I've got all my screws in there. And as you can see, we've got I took all the stickers off the bags. They're a nightmare to get off. Some of them I had to cut off and stick in here with double-sided tape. But we've got all the screws there, all labelled up. Okay, so that's really good. There's 14 lots of screws, and this is, I think is it 14? 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, 14 lots of screws. This is a 15 compartment box. And then I've got, you get a pair of them, you buy them in twos, and that's got all the other little brackets and stuff. And then there's a big tray in the model that has all the bigger hinges and other metal parts in. But I've done this just to sort of keep all these divided so they don't get all knocking around in bags and everything. And opening bags when you're building a model, it's much easier to just have that on the side, open, grab your magnetic screwdriver, get the screw out you need, screw it in, job done. Okay, so what I want to do now is talk to you about thread cutting. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a picture. We're going to zoom the camera in and we're going to look at different types of screws. Okay, so here we have some screws from the kit. Okay, these are screws from the Pocher kit. This is screw B and this is screw H. Okay, I've got some bigger ones out of my own sort of spares box. Bigger makes it easier to show you what the differences are, basically. So here we have, for the kit, this is screw B, and as you can see, I've put it next to this one because this is what is called a machine screw. Okay, so this is actually a screw. This is a Phillips headed screw. Okay, this is a socket headed cap screw. Okay, that's what that's called. And the reason it's called a screw is because, or machine screw, is because it has a machined thread. It's designed to go into a nut or a machined threaded hole. This one is a self-tapping screw. Okay, you sometimes get these with hexagonal heads or whatever they're on them. These are actually both called screws, and these are self-tapping screws, and these are designed to go into whatever material, plastic or whatever. They're definitely not wood screws, but they're designed, they'll go through thin sheet metal, they'll go into a speed nut, which is one of those bendy things with the tangs on. I'm sure you've all seen them, but they're also ideal for plastic. So anything that's screwed into plastic, you will use this type of screw here with the coarse thread. And obviously for our model, it's going to be this one here. With the machine screw, as I say, you need a thread for it to go into. Now the way that these model manufacturers, I've done another video for beginners all about thread cutting and everything, but I'm doing this one dedicated to the Pocher. The Pocher kit. Basically, what they have you do is screw the screw into a cast hole, which has probably got some paint in it, which is, to me, as an ex-Rolls-Royce time-served engineer, I don't think for 1 minute of the day that is actually the right way to go about it. It's just not right. Basically, the thread should be cut into the metal part that you're actually going to be screwing into. Now, what some people do, like if you go and watch Scott over on Building with the Boys, he does a lot of part works and everything where you're using these screws into metal, and what they do, they'll tell you to put the screw straight in. What they do is put a tiny drop of oil on the end and it just helps it go in. What you're actually doing is you are forcing that screw into a bore, and you're forcing this screw to sort of cut its own thread. And when you watch Moss's video, you'll see, if you go and watch Scott over at Building with the Boys, when he puts his screws into his part works, they go in fairly easily. Yeah, they're a bit tough. But if you go and watch Moss, he ends up with blisters on his hands where they're so tight going in. And he has real bad bloody problems with it. So I would thoroughly suggest tapping the threads, and I'm going to show you how to do that. The other thing I always say is, this is actually a bolt. Just quickly, just to give you the difference. You can see this one is not threaded all the way to the head, whereas this one is threaded all the way to the head. So therefore that is a screw, that is a bolt. So if we use the word Allen, which is a manufacturer's name, A-L-L-E-N, that's an Allen bolt, that's an Allen screw. Okay, so there you go, you've learned something. But if you went to Halfords or B&Q or whatever, your local department store, and you picked up some nuts and bolts, and you got home and you had the bolts and the nuts had just a hole and no thread in them, and they said, yes, okay, just get it and just wind it in and it will cut its own thread, don't worry about it. You'd say, don't be stupid, and you want your money back, wouldn't you? You wouldn't accept it. So basically, what I'm saying to you here is, you know, the professional proper way to do this, and to save yourself getting blisters and save the language, is to just cut the threads, which is really, really simple. So I'm going to get a few bits and pieces out, and I'm going to show you how I go about it. Okay, so if you follow my Partworks builds, you will have seen me use these. This is a cheap set of taps and dies, and I've also talked about this in my other video that I've done. You can see here I've got a piece of tape with numbers on it. These are basically what's called tapping drill sizes. So basically, if you had a lump of aluminium and you wanted to tap an M3 thread, you would drill a 2.5mm hole. That's the correct size, and then you'd get the tap, the 3mm tap, and tap your hole into it. That's all that's for. So the reason I've got that there is just so I can check. If I do get a really tight hole, I can check and drill the hole out should I need to. The one thing to look at when you buy these taps is look at what you're getting in the box, because you can see this is quite a nice little set. This has got 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.4, 1.6, 1.8, 2, 2.2 and 2.5, which is great for the Hachette Lancaster I'm building, because so far we've only used 1.8 and 2.2. Some sets will be sort of M1, M1.4, M2, M3, M2.5, M3, whatever. So make sure you're getting all these in-between sizes. If you buy sat taps individually, they can be quite expensive, whereas these sets can be got quite cheaply. Okay, so you'll see a set the same as this under a different name on Amazon. There is the picture there. You can see that's the box. So in here we have a load of taps that we can use. Now, to quickly explain taps to you, I'll use the M3 because I've got 2 of them here and I can show you the difference. So this one, yeah, these are both M3 I think. Hang on, get my magnifier because I can't bloody see anything these days. I'm actually 61 today, guys. Yeah, that one's M3 and that one's M3. Right, okay, so these are both M3 taps. And if you look at the flutes are the cutouts in between. So if we look in between the flutes, you can see that we have the thread. That's the bit that's going to do the cutting, okay? And you can see that on this one has more ground flat than this one. This is actually a second tap, not a first. The first tap is ground back even further. And the reason that's done is if you have a blind drilled hole it gives you a guide to go through. Not a blind drilled hole, it could be a blind hole, but say you have a through hole, it gives you a guide to go through and it pulls the tap through nice and straight. This is called the third tap, or the bottoming tap, and this cuts almost right to the end. Now you can see on here we have a point. Okay, that point is there for manufacturing. It also makes a very handy center punch, but that point is there for a manufacturing. It goes into a female center and they turn the tap, and that's how they do the grinding and the machining and everything. And the other end will generally have a center in it. But it looks like on there they got a female center on that end as well. So that's how they manufacture them. You can see this one definitely has a female center on the end, as does that one. Now what I like to do here is grind that point off. Okay, basically because the point is there for obviously for machining, but also generally if you're doing a blind hole, it will be a drilled blind hole. So the end of the hole will be the shape of the cone of the drill, so that'll go into it. In our case, when we've got these parts like this, we've got a casting. Okay, my concern is always if we're tapping that hole out there, for example, on the back side it's nice and smooth. If we go in with the tap and we push quite hard at the end, we may well make an indentation on that surface and make it come out. Okay, so we need to be very, very careful with that. So what I like to do is grind the end off, not completely flat, but just sort of put a ball on it. And you can see I've done this one here. This is the 2.2. Okay, you can see I've done that. Just ground the end off, so you can see the difference in those two. Okay, so just grind the end off. So I'll do this one now on camera, just to show you how I do it. I mean, if you've got a load to do, you're better off going out and doing it on the bench on a grinder if you've got one. But basically, I have a cheap and nasty little pink grinding tool which comes with these sets that you get. I've got this little tool here which is called a Galax Pro, came off of Amazon. Do it up nice and tight, maximum speed, and then just literally just grind that point off. Okay, you don't need to go all the way to a flat. Okay, it doesn't need to be there. See, that's one done, and then I'll do the other one here. You should really have safety glasses on. I don't, but I do wear glasses, so. And then just gonna go around like that. You can see now that we have on the end of there, it's pretty flat. It's got a smooth ball on it. You could polish it if you wanted to, but basically enables you to get the tap further in the hole, and it reduces the risk of making a dent at the bottom end. Okay, so that's those two done. Now, one of the problems with this model, okay, it's not, I'm not knocking the model at all. It's just an issue with this model. They have used 3mm thread on there, which is fine. We don't have one. 2.6 in that set, we don't have one. 2.3 in that set, we don't have one. And 1.8 in that set, we do have one. So I've had to go and buy a 2.3, a 2.6 and a 3mm tap. Okay, so you may end up, if you're just doing Pocher kits, you may just want to go and buy some individual taps. All right. The other thing we do with tapping, we would generally use something called a tap wrench. Now I got this one from Amazon, and it is absolute utter junk. You can see here, if you look closely, you can see how it's gone together. This block isn't even square. And when we actually put a tap in there, when we do it up, it's not contacting all four sides of the tap, and it's not holding the tap perpendicular to the tap wrench. You can see it's on an angle there. Okay, absolute utter garbage. Saying that, it was only about £3.79. I asked for a refund and they said don't bother sending it back, so obviously they know there's an issue. You can get something for a couple more pounds. It's slightly bigger, but you can see this is a lot better, and it will far better secure the tap. Okay, and it's perpendicular and it's contacting all four sides, so it's a lot nicer. It's still a cheap Chinese, you know, knockout thing, but it's, you know, it's not, you shouldn't have to pay more than £10 for one of these. So that's your tap wrench. Now I would recommend not using a tap wrench on these models if you can help it. On these bigger M3 threads we may need to, but on the small ones, certainly like the little 1.8 here, where's the 1.8? There's the 1.8 here. Again, you can see on here we've got the two different taps. This is your first tap and this is your second tap. See, this one has a taper on the front and this one doesn't. So again, we'll get that tap, we'll grind the front off. Just like so. Okay, and there we go. That's the front of the tap ground off. We've got flat on there, and that will allow it to go deeper into the hole now. In fact, I'm going to put a little bit of a radius on there because I do have a bit of a sharp edge on there. You must understand, guys, I'm not removing any threads. All I'm doing is removing that cone off the front. Okay, so here's the M1.8. And what I recommend for putting taps in is your pin vise. Okay, and the reason I do this is, I'm just going to actually check it is 1.8, just because it says 1.8 on the box. Yes, it's 1.8. Just because it says 1.8 on the box doesn't mean it's a 1.8. Alright, so there's our M3s, they can go back in there. So there's our 1.8 tap. What I'm going to do is go through the instructions, and when we get to this is the front subframe I've got here, and the reason I've done this is a fairly smallish part, believe it or not, rather than you know, hogging around a great big part. So what I'm doing here is looking where we're using this front subframe and looking wherever we've got screws going in. So on the front end here, okay, on the bottom screw, on the bottom holes, you can see we've got this part going in IO4. It's got pins on the top and it's got screws at the bottom, so we're only going to tap the bottom holes, and that's going to be with a screw C, and a screw C is a 2.3 by 5, so we're not going to do those at the moment. But on the sides you can see we have these brackets going in that are holding in the main wishbones, and they are all D's. All these screws are D's. So that's these 8 holes here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They are all 1.8. They are D screws, which we can show you in here, and 1.8. Okay, and they're 3mm long. So we'll get our instructions out of the way. I've got my 1.8mm tap with the end ground off, and I've got the number 2 tap. So first thing I'm going to do is take this little burr. So I got this out as well. This is a 3mm burr, a tool I'd thoroughly recommend, and I'm just going to basically, because these have a sharp edge on the front, it's like just a burr around the edge of the hole. I'm just going to remove that burr, and I'm doing it before I cut the thread. You can see this material is quite soft, and I'm just removing that. You can see it on this one here, this hole here, that one there. You can see there's like an edge on it, so we can literally come in with this tool and just, it's almost like putting a chamfer on the front, but it's got a radius on it, so it's putting a radius on it, just like so. Okay, there we are, just like that, look, see? So that's nice and smooth now. And then we come along is tap our threads. Now the other thing I've got to say here, when you do this, you are actually cutting metal. You are producing metal swarf that will scratch everything. So what I intend to do here, and I'll explain this when I start the build as well, because I will repeat myself a lot. What I intend to do is take this component and tap all the threads. So I'm going to go through the manual. You can see here we've got those 2 screws there. We've got all these screws going in the side. That doesn't matter, that screw's not going into this part, it's going into a part where it's going into this part here. We have, going further along, we have screws, where was it? I saw some of, there are more screws anyway. I think it's when the underbelly goes on, there's more screws there. Basically I'm going to go through so I don't have to tap any threads when we've got some lovely shiny yellow paint going on, and then the risk of anything getting scratched is minimised. Okay, right, so down to actual thread cutting. So I've got my tap here, I've got my D-bird holes, and now I'm going to put the tap in and cut the thread. I have 2 choices here. I can go in dry, who misses, or I can put a drop of oil on the end of the tap. Now there's plus sides and negative sides to both. The plus side of going dry is everything stays dry, so all the swarf just drops away. You can blow it out with your airbrush or whatever, and you'll have no problem at all. The trouble with going dry is you're probably going to wear your tap out pretty fast, even though it's quite a soft material. And you sometimes run the risk of tearing. The correct way to tap a thread is to always lubricate whenever you're cutting anything. But again, the downside is you're putting oil in there, which is, like I say, I don't think I mentioned it previously. When these people build these part works and everything, they put oil on the screw. I do worry on matte painted finishes about the oil spreading on the surface. We've all seen it where you get a drop of oil and it spreads. So I do worry about that. But so if you're going with oil, you run the risk of that happening. You also have all the swarf sticking to the tap and sticking in the hole. So you have to wash it out, blow it out, whatever. And it's going to be very difficult to clean it out. Now, I'm fortunate in that I've got a garage with a compressor and a big airline. I can go out there and really properly blow them out with sort of, 80 psi or whatever, and they'll be absolutely, totally crystal clear. I am actually going to repaint this part because I found some pictures of the Lamborghini, and this front subframe is actually a very high gloss black. So what I intend to do, we've got some sharp edges on here from the casting, which is unavoidable. I'm not at all knocking the kit. But if you want to get rid of those sharp edges, we can sand them off because we're going to be repainting anyway. So I could use oil, I could not use oil, whatever. I'll show you the difference because I have some oil here. It's basically it's a radio control car shock absorber oil. But it's just literally anything just to lubricate. So first of all, I'll do it dry. Okay, so I'll do a couple dry. And I'll show you how I do this. This is another good reason for using a pin vise, is it's easy to line up and get it all square and everything. Okay, so I'm going to go a turn, back a bit, a turn, back a bit, a turn, back a bit. And then you feel it come to the end, it stops. Let me just wind it out. Okay, blow it out. You can see we've got a thread in there. Now the beauty of this is, it's dry. You can see swarf on here. It's dry. We can blow it out, whatever, it's going to be absolutely fine. Okay, what we can do is try one of our screws. Before we tap any more, just in case it's not right, you've got the wrong tap wrench, you've made a mistake, we're going to take a screw D. Alright, put that box over there. I'm going to put it on my screwdriver. And I'm just going to check. And look at this, I can put this in with my fingertips rather than having to graunch it in as they suggest. Okay, so that's gone in there lovely. Now one of the problems here is these holes are very shallow and the screws are very short, luckily. So you may find that at the end it will start to get tight, but it's still better to have a thread there at the front, even if it's not going all the way to the bottom. You can get a bottoming tap, you could grind the end of this completely off, but I wouldn't suggest it. So here on this one, we'll do this one, make sure the tap's nice and square. Just go in, back, in, back, in, back, in, back, in, and you can feel it bottom out there. When you get to the bottom, you can see the pin vise will spin on the tap. The worry about using a tap wrench on these tiny little things, you can see the swarf there coming out. See the swarf all over the bench, you can see it glittering on my finger. You can imagine that will play absolute havoc with your paintwork. Okay, so you can see we've got a thread in there. Now, I'm not going to bother checking the screw on every one because I know they're all going to be okay. If the first one was okay, they'll all be okay. All right, and the other thing is you have to remember is what you were doing here is putting a thread in, which is going to make it a lot easier for the screw to go in. It's much better than just graunching them in, believe me. You have a far more satisfying build, and it also adds to the fun, doesn't it? You feel like an engineer when you're doing stuff like this. So again, one turn back, one turn back, one turn back. And there we go, then we can wind it out. Now you will see some people tap in threads, okay, and what they will do is just go in and just keep going forward and not coming back. That's fine on these tiny little taps, but I don't think it's going to be very good on the bigger ones. I wouldn't recommend it. The reason I wouldn't recommend it, you can already see here, the swarf that I did. In fact, I'll show you the difference now. What I'll do is clear this off, okay? Get this all cleared off. I'll do these two here. So the bottom one, I'm going to do in and back, in and back. Okay, That's that one done. You can see this swarf here is like powder. Okay, clean the tap off. And on this one here, I'll just wind it in without stopping and come back out. You can see here the swarf is much big. The battery just ran out, so I don't know how far I got. Well, you can see on here the swarf is clearly bigger on this side. Okay, you can see the swarf is clearly bigger here than it is there. Alright, that there is from going backwards and forwards, that's just one. And the problem with doing that, just going in without actually, going in and back, in and back, in and back, the reason you go back is as you're cutting the thread, you must remember that each one of those teeth, each one of these teeth on here is like scribing, and it's cutting a line in the metal. And if you don't go back, what's happening is you're making like a big coil spring of swarf, and it all gets jammed up, and you can jam the tap in there. And I have in my past, when you wind the tap back out, you can actually strip the thread. So it's better to go in and back, in and back, in and back. And I've done all of those now. No, I haven't done these here. So it's better to go in, back, in, back, in, back. And all you're doing when you go back, you're just snapping the swarf off. Now, I remember when I was an apprentice at Rolls-Royce, it used to be, it was actually an art. It was a science. You had to go so much. But if you just go like a turn, back a bit, turn, back a bit, like that, that's plenty. Okay, and I think it's going to be even more appropriate with the bigger threads. So you can see we just blow that out because it's all nice and dry. On the other side, I'll show you one wet. And you'll see there is a complete and total difference. And I'll probably only do this on one hole because it's a pain. It's an absolute pain. So what we've got here is a tub of an old Tamiya pot. I'm going to put a drop of oil on the end of there. Okay. So you can see it's not soaking in oil. It's just a little drop. And I've got a piece of piece of paper towel. Just going to wipe off the excess because I don't want it all sopping wet. And what will happen here is the tap will go in on this side now. I'll do it on this one here. The tap goes in a lot easier. It will actually cut a nicer thread. But the big downside is you can see now we've got all oil stuck around the hole. We'll have swarf stuck in the hole. And you can see that on the tap is all now solid with swarf. Okay, so we need to clean that off. I'll just wipe it on here to show you just how bad it is. I can't get it out. What I'm going to do, you can see the swarf in there. What I've got here is a little jar of tool cleaner. Just swirl that around in there and that'll degrease it. Okay. As I say, the taps cost peanuts. The metal is very soft. In strict engineering terms, yes, you should lubricate everything when you're cutting. Well, pretty much everything. But here, I don't know. I'll get this. These are the little anise cotton buds. I'll get that in there. And you can see the dirt that's coming out of there. Okay, so that should help to clean that out. If I do it in this side, you can see this one has got a slight amount of dirt on it already. But you won't get anything like the dirt out of these that you get out of that one, look. Alright, so I'll probably wash that out with a bit of thinners actually. You can see there's a bit of swarf stuck to the body of and it's left oil on. You can see I've got a little oil mark in there now. Okay, it's far better to do it dry. It really is, unless you want to be a proper sort of engineer. And if you just watch this, in fact, I'll ask Moss if I can borrow a segment out of his video. In fact, it'll be too late once I've done this one. But if you go and look at his video and you watch him putting these screws in, boy oh boy, he struggles. And this is just going to make life so much easier for us all. So it's something I would thoroughly recommend. So there we are, guys. That's what we've covered in this video, is setting yourself up. The one tool I forgot to mention that you need for this is screwdrivers. Now, I looked around online. A lot of people use the little Vera ones, the little ones with the green and black handles. I find the handles too, I'd rather have a bigger handle, I'd rather have something to hold. So I found these online, and this is a set of slotted and Phillips screwdrivers. Now for this I think you need a Phillips, it's either 1 and 2 or 0, 1, I can't remember now. But have a look online. This set is from Amazon and it was about £12. It also comes with a magnetizer and demagnetizer, which is great. So basically you've got all these screwdrivers in here, and I think these are the two we're going to be using most. Now if you get a set like this and they're advertised as Phillips, then you're good to go, because these are actually Phillips screws. You've got Posi drive and you've got that other Japanese one, which I can't remember what it's called now, but there are different types of screws, and I know for a fact that these will fit these screws beautifully. You can see on here that the bigger one's going to fit this one, and that fits that really, really nicely. Okay, so there we are. Now looking at this now, I'm not sure, having said that, that this is Phillips at all. I could have been misguided. No, it is. Okay, so we've got up to this bigger one here. Now, as I say, these aren't actually sized as PH1, PH2. They've got a diameter and a length on them. So that fits the M3 screw perfectly. Okay, so probably this one here, which I think is the number 2, is going to fit. Yes. It shouldn't have any play in it. Yeah, that one's not good. But that one's going to fit that one beautifully. Okay, and I think Screw D, this is the little 1.8. You can see these are magnetic, very magnetic, I might add. And that one's also going to fit that little tiny one there, and probably this one will fit them as well. There we go. So we're basically going to be using those 3 screwdrivers on our build. So that is, it's either 1, 2 and 3 or 0, 1 and 2, I can't remember now. But just basically get yourself a set of Phillips screwdrivers like these, magnetic ends, you want the hardened steel tips on them, and see how they go. As I said, I got these on Amazon. They were like £10 for the set. I generally use this little one here, but you can see they do get worn out. They don't last forever. This is very old. So I thought I'll treat myself to some new ones. And you can pay £10, £12 for each screwdriver, but because I wasn't absolutely sure what size I needed, I've gone for just the cheap set. So we'll see how they last, eh? So basically I'm just going to get some more tapping done, and what I'm going to do, as I said, is go through the manual, and I'm going to find, and I know that at the back here when we put the belly on, you can see here we have B screws, and they're going in to the actual front subframe there. So we've got holes in the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're going to be tapped 2.6, I think that is. The B is 2.6, I believe. Yep, the B is 2.6, and I've got those threads on the back to be done. There were some others as well, I can't remember where they are now, but there are others in here. But what I intend to do is go through, and what I'll, especially with the body that's got all that beautiful yellow paint on it, I'm going to make sure that I actually, you know, getting all the threads done in one, so we don't have the risk of having swarf all over our model. They're going in there. I don't think there are any more screws going in here actually. No, there's no more screws going into the front subframe, so we'll just tap what we need to, and then that'll be done. And as I say, I'm probably going to clean up all these edges. I'm going to see how visible they are first. But this is, you've got these slightly rough edges on here. Okay, they're unavoidable in the casting process. If they had somebody there cleaning up and polishing these edges, it would double the price of the kit. So it doesn't really matter. I don't think you're going to see them on the finished model anyway, but I want to repaint it gloss black. So because I'm a fussy old sausage, I just want to deburr it, clean it up, and then repaint it. So there we are. Right, thank you for watching. I hope this has helped you if you are new to the world of Pocher. Don't take this as gospel for the older Pocher kits, but I know I built a Testarossa when I was younger, and I would say exactly the same if you're building the Testarossa, the Ducati, any of the Lamborghinis, the Lotus, any of the newer Pocher kits. I would say, you know, get yourself a box, get yourself some taps, cut your threads, don't go crunching them in, and just make life easy for yourself. Okay, so thank you for watching. If you are going to get one of these to build along with your son or whatever, these will be very, very family friendly videos. Okay, I will not be swearing. There will be there'll be the odd little joke, like, you know, like I make now and again, going in dry, stuff like that, which a youngster wouldn't even listen to anyway. But yeah, if you want to do this with a youngster, there will be no swearing and all that sort of stuff. So there we go. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that. Hope you've learned something from it. As I say, I've also done a video for the beginner series about thread cutting where I use the Lancaster as an example. And I think this is all really, really valuable for any pocket kit you're going to do. And it also reads across into your D'Agostini, Hachette, Agora cars and everything as well. I think thread cutting is a must. Okay. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.